Hi, I'm Eleni, and I'm here to talk about another example using triads, which is a tool of human-centric leading. Now, we all know this experience that we deal with no response. Like we're working on a team, we need input from other people, we negotiate the outcomes at a meeting, and then we go back to our day jobs, and then people don't always deliver on the time that they had promised in a meeting, for example. And so in many cases, people tend to personalize this, like somebody doesn't respect me, or what's wrong? Is it that I'm not a person who's valued in the organization? Is, my project will suffer. And so in creating this triad of thought, feeling, behavior, these are very common thoughts which people personalize. So they take a behavior that's happening outside of them and they say that's happening because it's me, specifically me. And through this video, what we're trying to talk about is that it's not personal. It doesn't make it easier, but it's not personal. And when you depersonalize, that's when it becomes easier. It's not that the depersonalization will solve the issue, but the depersonalization will make it easier to deal with this frustrating aspect that often happens within team cultures that are not working well. So we have this triad of it's me, I'm not respected, I'm the one who has to suffer the consequences, I'm alone. And the feelings that are often created from this type of thinking of frustration, anger, anxiety, confusion, like why aren't they doing it? We talked about this, even disgusted that colleagues would treat each other that way. And then these are some common behaviors. We either go extreme to avoid it, we're like, okay, we're just going to let that go and maybe do the work. So take an over-functioning perspective without even pursuing this because we're so disgusted and angry. But these things, of course, create their own problems. We could persist and we often nag, like write people more emails, call them, text them, chat them, go to their offices, talk to their bosses if we escalate. So we have these very common behaviors that are reinforced in most organizational contexts, which create more problems. So this triad is not a highly functional one, but we all have probably been there. We've all felt these things and thought these things and done these things just from being in organizations where we've seen other people do them, and we might have even been taught to do them by watching others and being mentored that way. And so what we're going to do is think of a triad that we want to have in face of the same problem. So we're not saying how to wipe this out miraculously alone, because this is a function of a team culture issue. This is a function of people's priorities are not aligned. So one team, let's say the finance team and the engineering team, have different time scales or priorities or behavioral rushes, firefighting approaches that don't match each other. And so one promise will fall out because not that the person doesn't want to do what they promised, but something else has happened, takes their time away. Someone says you do it or else. We know a lot of reasons why people don't do what they've promised. And it's usually not because they're not working hard or disciplined or a respectful person. It's usually contextual based. So we cannot solve this on our own. This is a team culture based issue, but what we're solving here is the response to it. Okay, so that I wanted to be clear, because if we pretend we can fix this on our own, we're not really being honest, and we're not really saying things that make sense. This is talking about shifting from a triad that looks like this, even if yours is not exactly the same, something like this, to something more desired and something more easy to face the same challenge. So what I did is I started out with what I wanted to feel. I want to feel calm and resourceful and neutral. I don't want to feel angry, frustrated, disgusted, and all these burn up my energy, and I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel calm and resourceful, like I have a say. I'm not trapped, I'm not a victim, I'm not powerless. So to feel that, I have to think, I control my work. So that's one part I can control. I can't control what other people do is giving me input, so I can control my work, and I also already feel more resourceful. I can say everyone's working hard and focused. So here, I didn't write them down, but there's an assumption of they're going against me. It's like something against me, or I'm not respected, or I'm not powerful enough in the organization. Whereas here it's really being more practical and saying, you know what, everybody's working hard and everyone's doing their best, but their priorities, and they're focused on what they work doing, but their priorities are not the same as mine. And for unfortunate reasons, they promised me something, probably having good intentions to send me the data I needed as part of my project, and then something happened that took their attention away. Now, what also happens is I might call them and, you know, chase them, nag them, do persist, but that doesn't change their priorities. It just escalates and puts more emails in the inbox and more data out there, making it obvious that they haven't done what they said they would do. So that doesn't really help, even though we have a tendency to do it. So this is an assumption that everybody is working hard. It's not about me. So I depersonalize it. And I say, okay, let me negotiate priorities. What can I do to keep myself resourceful or to get my needs met? Okay, so this is really focusing on, okay, this person has this problem and says, okay, my colleagues still haven't responded when they said they would. What do I do? I can have a more resourceful triad like this, which then leads me to do very different things. So this, instead of avoid, persist, nag, escalate, do it myself, I would say, okay, what could I do instead of sending 5 emails saying you haven't done it, when is it going to get done, do you remember your commitment, whatever emails we might send, we could say, could we have a 5-minute discussion about what is a more reasonable time to get this done? Or should we align priorities? Or what timeline does your schedule fit? You know, so we can see people as humans. We're assuming they're good. We're assuming they're working hard. It's not that they're trying to hurt us or sabotage our work. And we're talking about situations where people aren't trying to sabotage our work. That's another triad in another video. We can communicate more instead of escalate or write emails. Maybe we write emails when we're frustrated, so when they are received, they're a little curt or tense. You know, we know all this, right? And we look for team solutions. So part of this is an acknowledgement that I am not alone in my work. And that is very hard for us to achieve in a work setting, because we've been socialized within the education system that each of us are responsible for our achievements and our outcomes. And as we work in teams, we're not taught how to give up that control or power that we're only trying to seek just to ensure a good quality of our work. We're not trying to be power hungry. We're trying to say, okay, if I'm responsible for my outcomes, I have to control everyone else who is inputs in order for me to get good outcomes. And really having this triad is saying, okay, it takes more to create an outcome. It doesn't mean that I won't end up doing this if I feel desperate and I don't know what else to do, but it does give a chance still to discuss what might be more realistic. And so when we persist or avoid or nag and escalate, it creates other pressure on other people, which make them more defensive and more likely to put my project last. But if I then start to treat them with respect and say, hey, I'm realizing something must have come up for you for the deadline to be gone. Can I do anything to help you? Is there something that we could do together to help you? Is it there's another timeline we need to discuss? Like, we all talk about how do we all get our work together done, or done together, or how do we all get our work done even if we have to do it on our own together, that we don't feel lonely and desperate and really frustrated. So that's a very different perspective. So some of you might feel, oh yeah, right, good luck to us to feel like this when we're in this context. But I think that's part of the assumption base. When you're assuming the best of yourself and others, you automatically think, feel, and behave differently. So this is really the different distinction between these triads. So if you want to take a takeaway, you could ask yourself, where are you if you're faced with this, or when you're faced with a no response from a customer, a client, a colleague, a boss, etc. How do you think, feel, and behave? And could you move to a triad that feels more resourceful to you and that respects your own humanity and that of the people on your team?